Hi everyone, my name is Ned, and in part 4 of this video series, I will teach you how to create all the forms and reports for this application. Let's begin. So how do we go about creating these interfaces that we'll need for our website? To do that, we need to go to the Data Pages object. Data pages are the application interfaces that you will later on be embedding into your website to access all the functionality. And to build a data page, all you need to do is click on this link at the top. And this is going to launch Caspio's point-and-click data page wizard. If you look here on the left-hand side, you're going to see a navigation menu. These are all the different types of applications that you can build. So you can build input forms, you can build reports to output data on the web, you can build calendars, charts if you need to see a visual representation of your data. So if you're building, let's say, a CRM that contains pipeline, forecast, even revenue type data, it's always nice to build a chart so that you can see metrics, highs and lows, and how the company is performing from that perspective. You can also build HTML data pages if you're a little bit more technically adept. If you're savvy enough, you can build more sophisticated and robust applications using HTML data pages. In our video, we're now going to build these types of data pages. We're going to focus on these 4 tabs. So let's begin building our application by creating a very simple report that's a combination of a chart and results. So if you click on this data page type, directly below you will see an illustration of what you're building. You'll have the ability to search data if you decide to build a search interface, ability to view a chart and results on the results page, and the ability to drill into details if necessary. So let's move on by clicking on next. Now I do want to point out one more thing. As we begin building these data pages, I'm going to slow things down initially just to show you step by step on how to build these data pages. But later on in the video, I'm going to speed things up a little bit just so that we can get through the content a little bit faster. If you need to pause, go ahead and do that. You can always go back and rewind to specific parts of the video just to make sure that you're doing the same thing that I'm doing as well. So take a look at here at the very top. On this screen, we can select our data source. Now, when you click on this drop-down, you will see a list of all 5 of your tables. In this report that I'm building, I would like to pull the information from the sales table because all the sales information resides inside that table. So that's going to become my data source. I'm going to give my data page a name, and I'm going to call it My Sales. What I would like this report to do is give the rep that's logged into the application just their own data. So if I'm logged in as Max, I will be able to see my sales. If I'm logged in as Amelia, I will be able to see my own sales. Here you can apply a different style. Styles are used for aesthetics, the look and feel of your forms and reports. You can also go to this object called Styles to fully configure your own style. Meaning if you have a certain color palette on your website, you can match the color palette from Caspio to your own website. You can also change the localization. Localization deals with regional settings, so you can change the language of the forms and reports. You can also apply a different date format by changing the localization. And just like the styles drop-down, you can also go to the localizations tab here and fully configure your own localization. In this section called access and security, we're going to check this box and we're going to select our authentication called demo reps login. If you recall from the previous video, we learned how to build our authentications, and all I'm doing here is applying my reps login because I only want the reps to have the ability to log into this application and view their own sales. Let's move on. Here you have the ability now to build a search interface, meaning if I log in as a rep, I'll have the ability to search the data based on some search fields. If you don't want them to have the ability to search and just view the data right away as soon as they log in, you can select the second radio button to filter data based on predefined criteria. Now look here at the bottom, we have something called record level security. Go ahead and check this box, and what you want to do in these 2 drop downs is you want to select rep ID as the authentication field, and you also want to match the field in the current data source. And in the current data source we also have rep ID. If you recall from the import screen and even our Excel file, in the reps table we have the rep ID, that's the auto value. But we are also stamping that auto value in the sales table. So that's the common value between these 2 tables. And if you match this up correctly, Now when I log in as Max, I will be able to see data that belongs to me. Conversely, if I log in as Amelia, I will be able to see data based on my rep ID. Here the wizard is asking me, do you want to filter data based on any one of your fields? We're not going to do that. Let's bypass this and click Next. Now let's select the fields that we want to use in the results page. So let's go ahead and display the product name. Let's have the city, state, maybe even sale amount, and date of sale. Let's move on. Do we want to give our reps the ability to edit data on the results page? Of course, you're welcome to give them the ability to edit. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to keep these unchecked for now, just to keep things simple, and let's move on. On the results page, we can also make a few modifications here. For example, I would like to be able to group my data based on product name, so enable grouping, and let's have a collapsible group and expand it by default. I would also like to perform some kind of a basic calculation so I can get a total per group and also grand total at the bottom to give me a total across all of my sales. So to do something like that, we're going to insert something that's called totals and aggregation. So you'll find that added to your list of fields. And what I'm trying to do is just grab the total for sale amount. So select that field, and we're going to use a function called sum. Of course, you can add your own custom formula if you'd like, but we're not going to go ahead and do that. So let's move on. On this screen, you have the ability now to choose how many records you want to display per page. You have a lot of options here actually on how you can view the data. You can even sort data based on your fields in any chronological order, but we're not going to do that. Let's move on. And now the wizard is basically asking me, what kind of a chart would you like to use to display the data? For this use case, I'm going to use a stacked column chart and continue. Now let's configure the chart. The first thing I'll do is add my title and subtitle. So let's call this monthly sales by product. Let's take a look at our settings. Here you can configure the chart on how you want to display the data. I'm going to select the top radio button to just create the series from a data in a single field. For my x-axis, we're going to go ahead and use the date field, so date of sale, and I would like to group the date on a date rollup based on month. Let's give this axis a title, so we're going to call it month. For my series, what we're trying to plot is based on the product name. For my y-axis, let's call this total sales, and let's also format this to appear as a currency. And we're going to include a dollar value or a dollar symbol. Click OK. And finally, for my value, what I'm trying to sum is my sale amount. That's the field that contains all the revenue. And we're going to apply the aggregation called sum. Let's move on. I'm not going to make any changes to my chart options here. Let's move on again. And let's go ahead and enable a details page. Now, if you don't wish to have a details page, you can always say no details. And at that point, you can even preview to see what your data page looks like. So if I click on that button, let's go ahead and log in as Max. And as soon as I log in as Max, here's the data page that we just created. So we built our chart that displays all the revenue based on product sold per month. And underneath that, we're grouping our data based on product, as you can see. We can also expand and collapse each one of these groups. And at the very bottom, we have a grand total that shows me the sum of all of these sales. Let's close the preview. Now, if you're happy with the information that you're displaying on the results page, you may not necessarily need a details view. But if you do enable the details view, the next button becomes available once again. And now you have the ability here to choose what information you want to display in the details view. What exactly is the details view? Well, let's include all these fields and preview once again. Now you get to see this details link that you can click on. So if I want to see additional information about this record, I can click on details, and that's going to show me more information from the table that I can view. I think the information that I'm displaying in the results page is sufficient enough, so we're going to close this tab, and let's go back and just disable the details page and click finish. We have now created our very first data page. You can edit the data page if you need to make additional modifications. You can preview the data page once again, to see what it looks like. But if you want to publish this data page to your website now, all you need to do is click on deploy, enable access, and Caspio is going to give you 5 different deployment methods. The embed model is the most popular. All you need to do is copy this code, paste that code into your website builder, publish your website, and you will be able to see that report seamlessly embed into your own website. That's the beauty of Caspio. When you build these interfaces, you can very quickly put them onto a website, and now whoever has access to that URL will be able to view that report once they've logged in, if you choose to build a login interface. Now, I'm not going to talk about deployment in this video. We're going to talk about that in more detail in part 5 of this video series. But for now, let's continue building the rest of our data pages. So what data page do we need to build next? Well, we now have the ability to log in as a rep and view our own sales. We should also have the ability to input our own sales. And for that, we're going to need to build a submission form. So let's build a new data page. Select submission form and move on. As for my data source, if you guessed the sales table, you're correct. When I submit the form, I need to input that data and store that data into the sales table. So this needs to be my data source. Let's give the data page a name. I'm going to call this Add New Sale. Down below, I'm once again going to enable this checkbox for access and security, and I'm going to apply my authentication for reps. Why? Because the reps need to log into the application first before they submit the form. Let's move on. On this screen, you have the ability to include one field at a time, depending on what field you want to display on the submission form. But in our case, we're going to move all the fields and click Next. Once you reach this screen, here you're going to have the ability to select each field on the left-hand side and make modifications on the right side. If you want to see what the form looks like at this point, you can click on the preview button, and here's what the form looks like. It's a very basic form. At the moment, we only have text fields. Let's modify a few fields. For my product name, we have a table that contains a list of all the products, so we don't actually have to have this be a text field. If you click on Form Element, you're going to find this option called Dropdown. Select that, and then you can either add your own custom values. Now, we don't want to add custom values because we already have a list of our products. So instead of custom values, let's do a lookup table. And for table or view, select the table that contains all the products. And with just this simple modification, now if you click Preview again, you're going to see how instead of having a text field, we now have this nice drop down that looks inside that lookup table. For my rep ID, let me go back to preview. We don't want the reps to manually input their ID each and every time they submit the form. We already have their ID in the reps table. Somehow we need to grab that ID, populate it inside this field, and automatically stamp the ID inside the sales table. So let me go back to my data page, and instead of this being a text field, we want to select Hidden. And on load, we want to grab the authentication field and stamp the rep ID from the reps table. Now if I hit preview again, you will see how we're hiding that field. It's still there behind the scenes. It's automatically populating Max's ID, and when I submit the form, that ID number 1 will be automatically stamped in the sales table. Let's move on. My city field, this can be a text field. My state field, once again, we have a lookup table that contains all the states. So instead of that being a text field, I can select dropdown, lookup table, and find my table that contains all the states. Now, I don't want to display the ID. I actually want to display the state name. So let's just make that change as well. For my sale amount, that can be a text field. And for my date of sale, that can also be a text field. Let's preview one more time. And now you can see we have these 2 drop-downs that allow me to select the product and the state. And upon submission, we're going to be stamping Max's ID in the sales table. If you're happy with the look and feel of the form, you can close the preview screen and very simply click on Finish to save your changes. We now have 2 data pages created. We have a simple input to add a new sale, and we have a report that outputs all the sales. Let me show you how this works. Let's make one submission. Remember, I'm still logged in as Max. So we're going to select this product. Location city can be New York. State can be New York. Sale amount can be, let's say, 50,000. And I'm going to select the date of sale to be maybe last month in May, 16th. Hit submit. There's my confirmation message. Let me go back to my second data page, hit preview. And we should now be able to find that entry. So there's that entry for 50,000 that we just created. And if you look at the month of May, you can see how the chart is going to reflect that sale. What I wanted to show you with this is when you add a new sale, that information is being stored inside a sales table. But remember, the report is also built on top of the sales table, so we should be able to pull up that information that we just entered. Both of these data pages are built on top of the same sales table. Let's build one more data page for the reps. The last data page that I'm going to create is the ability for them to log in and view a report that shows them a chart of all the sales brought in by all the other reps. So to do that, we could click on the link here at the top to build a new data page. However, there is an easier way to do this. If you have a report that already displays some data, and the report that you're building after that is very similar to the one that you created before, you could actually click on more and then click on duplicate to create the same exact report. Let's call this one company sales and click on save. I do need to make some modifications to this report because it's exactly the same one as the one below that. So let's click edit. I still want to keep the same data page. Let's move on. On this screen, I once again want to apply my login screen, so reps have to log in before they can view the report. Let's click next. Now a big change that's needed here is we have to actually uncheck this box for record level security, because when I log in as the rep, I want to be able to see all the data from that table. And if you enable this checkbox, it's only going to show the rep the data that belongs to their specific ID. So let's move on. No need to make any changes here. Let's hit next. Let's include the rep ID field in the results page. Move on. Now again, you could enable editing options for your reps if you'd like, if that's the need that you have. I'm going to go ahead and leave these unchecked and move on. And all I'm going to do here is reposition my rep ID field to the very top. I'm going to enable data grouping, collapsible group, and collapse by default. Let's move on. Let's go ahead and display perhaps 500 records per page and move on. This time I'm going to select a different chart. Let's go with the bar chart and hit next. Now let's go ahead and configure all the options for this chart. I'm going to call this company sales by rep. For my settings, I'm going to go with the second radio button to use separate fields. For my y-axis, we're going to have the rep name, and I'm going to change the category field to rep ID so we can display the ID of the rep. My x-axis, we're going to have total sales, and my value, once again, we're going to use the field sale amount, and we want the aggregation to be set to sum. Let's move on. Now let's go ahead and sort the order of this chart. I want to be able to display highest to lowest on that sum amount. So let's grab that field, and let's go ahead and sort that Z to A, which will be highest to lowest. Let's move on. And in this case, I don't really have a need for the details page. We can go ahead and now click finish, or we can click on the preview button to see what we created. And take a look. Here's my chart that's listing highest to lowest in terms of sales. And down below, we can see an aggregate of all the sales, including the rep ID. Now, I know what you're wondering. Well, I'm not going to be able to memorize all these IDs. I want to be able to display the name. The only person that I know belongs to ID number 1 is Max, because we talked about that so many times already. So how do I replace the ID with the actual name of the rep? And in Caspio, that's actually very easy to do. Let's close the preview tab, save our changes by clicking on finish. And then let's open up the tables menu by right-clicking and clicking on new tab here. And let's go directly inside the relationships. Go ahead and include your reps table and also your sales table by checking these two boxes. Now, for those of you who have an Access background, you can actually move these tables anywhere you want. and you can create the relationship by drawing the line between your fields. Now, as we talked about so many times already, the common value between these two tables is the rep ID field because we're stamping the rep ID inside the sales table. So all you need to do is just drag over this line from rep ID to rep ID, and when you let go, it's going to have this pop-up. Caspio is going to identify that relationship type as a one-to-many. Both of these tables are linked via the rep ID, but now if I want to display the name instead of the ID on the data page, all I need to do is in this drop-down select the name of my rep and check this box to use display value on the data page. When you click on create, Caspio is going to create that relationship for you. It is a one-to-many, so one rep can be linked to multiple sales. But because you have this relationship created, you can now grab the name of the rep from this table and replace the ID on the data page. So let's save our layout. Let's go back to data pages, click preview once again, and now you see that we have replaced the ID with the name because we created that relationship inside the relationship screen. Let's close this tab. Let's close this tab and let's continue building the rest of our data pages. Before I continue, however, I do want to spend just a brief moment talking about folders. Folders are a great way to organize your data pages. Just how you organize your files on your desktop, we use folders to group all of our data pages. And if you don't use the folders, you're going to end up with a long list of data pages, and then it becomes really difficult to find the ones that you need to edit. So I highly recommend that you create these folders to store all of these data pages. And the way I want you to use the folders is for every user group that your application has, you should have a folder for each one of those user groups. So for example, in our use case, we have a folder for administrators, and we have a folder for reps. Now we know that all three of these data pages are accessed by the reps because we apply the login screen that gives access to all of our sales reps. So what we can do is we can actually select these three data pages, click on bulk actions, click on move, expand the application container, and we should be able to see those two folders. I want to move these three data pages inside the reps folder, so click on it, click on move. And you see how it's much cleaner this way to build applications. Now if you need to edit any of the functionality for the reps, you can just expand the folder and you can find all three of those data pages. You're not going to end up with a long list of data pages and you have to find those three that you need to edit. So that's the huge benefit of using folders, and I definitely recommend that you get into a habit of creating folders as well. Okay, so I still have 6 more data pages to build for the admin portal, so let's open up the folder. And as I said at the beginning of the video, once we get the hang of how the data page wizard works, we're going to speed things up a little bit just so that we can get through all the content. So if you feel that the video is a little bit too fast-paced, then just go ahead and pause the screen, go back if you need to, until you're able to sync up with the video speed. Okay, so let's begin. I want the admin to have the ability to add a rep to the user table. So we're going to build a submission form, click next, and select a table that's going to store all the reps information. Let's give this a name, add new rep. And let's go ahead and apply our authentication for the admin because only the admin access user should have the ability to create a rep inside a table. We don't want reps to be able to add other reps. So let's move on. I need all my fields in the form. Click next. And now you can make your fields required if you need to. So name can be a required field. Email is automatically required because it's unique inside the table. And as an admin, I can create the password on behalf of the employee. Now you can also enable some options here to have a password strength and also minimum strength required if you'd like. I'm going to keep these unchecked and just move on. Here you can configure the confirmation page if you want to have a message after you submit the form. You can also enable 2 types of emails to be triggered upon submission. We're not going to be setting up emails, but if you do enable these checkboxes on the subsequent screen, you can customize the email. So if you do create an account for a rep, you can trigger an email to go out to a rep to let them know what his or her credentials are going to be. For now, we're going to click Finish to save our changes. And now we have this data page created inside the admin folder. If I click Preview, I need to log in as the admin. who in this example is going to be John. And once I log in as John, as you can see, now I have the ability to create a new rep, to add that information to the rep table. So now when I create this rep will be able to log in later on and be able to manage his or her own sales. Let's close the preview screen. And let's build a data page that allows the admin to be able to manage all the reps from that table. So let's click on New here at the top. Select Reports. Let's go into tabular format. Click Next. We want to pull that information from the reps table because I'm trying to build a report to view the information from this table. In other words, if I want to change the rep's name, I got to pull that information from this data source. Let's call this View Manage Reps. Restrict access to admin only. Click Next. You can build a search form here if you'd like. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's quickly build a search interface. You don't need to apply record level security because admin is the highest level. We should be able to see all the reps from within that table. And let's have the ability to search based on rep's name and email. Of course, if you had additional fields inside that table, you can include those fields here if you want to be able to search on other fields as well. Hit Next. Let's configure the search form. My name and email are set here to the left. My name at the moment is set as a comparison type equal, which means I have to know the exact name of the rep before I can pull that result. I'm going to use contains comparison type. It gives you a broader results range. So if you type in letter A and click search, it's going to return all the names that contain letter A. I'm going to do the same thing with the email field and click Next. On my results page, I would like to display the name and email of my reps. Click Next. Now let's have the ability to do a basic inline edit. Inline edit is going to allow you to edit that record on that row, so we can quickly edit all of the reps information directly from the results page. Let's move on. I'm not going to make any changes here. Let's click Next. Let's display 25 records per page. I know that inside my reps table, I think I only have about 12 or 13 reps, so 25 should be fine. Let's move on. Let's enable the details view. And in the details page, I'm going to choose to display all the information and move on. So the rep ID is going to be display only. We don't really want to update the rep's ID. We can update the name, so let's change that from display only to text. Same thing with email. We can change that to an email special element. And password we can also change. Now we don't want to require current password validation because if a rep changes their password, we may not know what the password is. So we want to disable that feature here. And when you're done, click on Finish. And with just a few clicks, we were able to build a report that allows the admin to manage all the reps. Let's take a look at the report by clicking on Preview. As you can see, I have a search interface. Once I click search, it's going to show me all the results of all the reps from within that table. Now if I wanted to change Max's information, I can do an inline edit, or I can actually cancel this, go into the details view, and from here I can also change Max's information along with the password as well if I want to update their password for whatever reason. Let's close the preview tab. What we can do at this point is add a new rep to the reps table, and we can also view all the reps from the same table. So again, input, output. Let's continue building the rest of the data pages. Now I'm going to build a report that allows the admin to view all the sales for each of the reps and be able to reassign that sale to somebody else if it was mistakenly submitted by a rep. So let's build a new data page. Choose Reports, and let's also do a combination chart and a report data page type. Click Next. I need to build this report based on the sales table because that's where all the information resides. And let's call this View Manage Sales. I need to restrict access to the admin level user. Click Next. And let's build a search interface and move on. Now, what fields do we want to be able to search the data on? Let's search based on product name, rep ID, and perhaps date of sale. Click Next. Just like the previous report, we now need to configure the search fields. So for the product name, I'm actually going to turn this into a list box so that we can see the products and be able to select more than one product at a time. So from this drop down, select list box, and then under custom values, you can actually do both lookup tables and custom values, because for my custom value, I would like to say search all products. Make sure you delete the value because this doesn't exist in the table. And then for lookup table, select the table of products. And what this is going to allow you to do is see a list box with all the products displayed. Now in the advanced tab, make sure you allow for multi-select so that we can select more than one product at a time. So if I wanted to do a comparison between two products, you can do a multi-select. Back to standard tab, and let's move down to rep ID. For my rep ID, this is automatically configured for me because in the relationship screen, I was able to draw that line between the two tables to connect my reps table to the sales table. The only minor modification that I'm going to add to this dropdown is instead of lookup table, once again I want to do both because under custom values, I want to be able to say something like search any, which means search any rep. Make sure you delete the value, and then your lookup table automatically looks inside the reps table to pull their name. For my date of sale, perhaps I would like to do some kind of a date range. So to do that in Caspio, use the insert button to add what's called new criteria. Underneath that date field, you will see these two options now. Set the logical operator to end, and then for criteria 1, I'm simply going to say comparison type greater than or equal to, and I may change my label to say perhaps from. This is the from date. And criteria 2 is going to be less than or equal to. And this is going to be my to field. Let's move on to the results page now. So what information do we want to display on the results page? Here I want to include the rep's name, product name, city, state, the sale amount, and also date of sale. Let's move on. Let's also have inline edit, and let's have the ability to do an inline delete. So just in case an admin wants to delete that sale for whatever reason, he or she will have that flexibility to do that. And I'm also going to enable bulk edit because as an admin, let's say we're looking at the list of all the sales belonging to one of the reps, and I want to select more than one sale and reassign those sales to a different rep. Well, here with the bulk edit feature, we can do something like that, and you'll see in just a moment how we configure the bulk edit screen. So let's move on. On this screen, what I would like to do is enable data grouping based on the rep name. Let's have this be a collapsible group and collapse by default. I'm also going to include totals and aggregation because I want to be able to do a total on the sale amount field, and I want to apply my function called sum. This is exactly what we did when we created the report for the reps. So if you recall from earlier in the video, we actually did the same exact thing. We're now just replicating that inside a report for the admin. Let's move on. So this is the bulk edit screen. We haven't seen this screen yet. You can include any one of these fields that you would like to have in your bulk edit screen. You can also include additional ones by using data source field, or you can exclude some of these fields. In this use case, what I would like to do is just have the ability to reassign these sales to a different employee or to a different rep. So what I'm going to do is just delete some of these fields from the bulk edit screen to only include the ability to reassign from one rep to another. And this is the only field that I'm interested in having inside that bulk edit screen. So let's move on. Let's show 500 sales per page. Let's move on. Now, what kind of chart do we want to build here? You have a lot of options here depending on how you wish to display the data. I'm just going to go with a stacked bar chart and move on. Let's give this a title. Let's call it total sales by rep. For my settings, I'm going to use the top radio button. My y-axis will contain the rep name, so let's give that a title of name. For my series, I'd like to actually see total sales based on product. For my x-axis, this will be the total. And you can also format this as a currency. And the value, once again, we want to use the sale amount field and do a sum. Let's continue. We don't need to make any changes here. Let's move on. Do we need a details page at this point? I don't think we really need a details page here, so we can disable that. And again, you can click preview if you'd like. I'm just going to click finish to save my changes. And finally, I'm going to preview my data page to see what it looks like. As you can see, we have the ability to do a list box. We can select more than one product by holding Control on the keyboard and clicking on the mouse. We have the ability to pull all the reps, and we can do a date range search if we wanted to. Click search. Here's the list of all the results, including the chart. And what's nice about the Caspio charts is you can actually show and hide these elements. So if you only want to focus on a specific product, you can disable the other products here and just display the desktop. And just by looking at this chart, I can tell that Max was the most successful at selling desktops. Down below, we can see a group data of all the reps. We can also expand the reps sales. And if I wanted to reassign some of these sales to a different rep, let's just say, for example, we're looking at Max's sales. And I find that sale of, let's say, 50,000, and I would like to reassign this sale to somebody else. Well, check that sale, go back up here to the top and click on edit, and now I can reassign that sale to somebody else. So if I give that sale to, let's say, Daniel, and click update, you will now see how the chart is going to reflect that change as well. Now when we focus back on the desktop computer, now you can see a bit of an even balance here between Max and also Daniel, who we just reassigned that sale to. By the way, we can also go back to the search interface, and if I only want to pull that information for desktops, I can click search, and now I don't really have to show and hide those elements because it's just showing the desktop if that's all that I want to see. And the data below is also just showing for that product. It's not going to show you all the other products as well. Let's close the preview tab and let's continue building the rest of the data pages. For the last 3 data pages, I'm going to show you how quickly you can build them, and I want you to see why Caspio is considered a rapid application development platform. Once you get the hang of things, you're going to build these data pages most of the time without even thinking about it. So let's begin. These last 3 data pages are going to be part of my dashboard view, so when I log in, I want to see all 3 of these data pages on a single web page. And the information that I would like to see on that dashboard view are 2 charts and a pivot table that shows me aggregate data across all of my sales. So let's begin by building 2 charts. I'm going to go with the line chart to show me the trend of my sales. Hit next. The sales data resides inside a sales table. Let's give this a name. Total sales by month. Restrict access only to admin level. No need for a search form. Let's continue. No need to filter the chart based on any fields, so let's continue again. And let's give the chart a title. We're going to call this total sales by month. For my settings, I'm going to go with the second radio button. X-axis will be month. And I'm going to select my field date of sale, and I want to group that based on a date rollup, and I want month. My y-axis will be total sales. I want to change the formatting to currency. And for my value, just like before, I'm going to use my sale amount field, and I'm going to do a sum, and we can also apply a marker to this chart, so let's do maybe a diamond. Now you can click preview to see what you created at any point. And what the chart is going to show me is basically the trend of all the sales. So just by looking at this chart, I can see that we had a really good month in June, but as the admin or as the owner of the company, I want to know what happened in July. How come we had such a huge dip compared to the previous month? So if you're happy with the way the chart looks, you can close the preview tab. Click on finish to save your changes. And now let's build our second chart. Go down to charts. And I'm going to build a bar chart. So let's hit next. Once again, sales table. And I'm going to call this chart top performers. Once again, admin login, hit next. No need for a search form, hit next. No need to filter data, so let's hit next one more time, and now let's configure the settings for this chart. We're going to call this top performers. Very simple. Go down to settings. I'm going to use the second radio button. My y-axis will contain my rep name, so let's give that a title. My x-axis will be total sales. Also change the formatting to currency. Hit OK. And value, again, we want to use the sale amount field, and we want to do a sum. Again, you can click preview to see the chart. Notice how it's not actually sorting based on highest to lowest, so I forgot to make that change. I'm going to go back to the data page wizard on the following screen. All I need to do is select my sale amount and sort that Z to A. Hit preview. And now you can see how the chart is going to sort all the sales starting with the highest performer first all the way to the lowest performer. Let's close the preview tab. Hit finish to save our changes. And we have one more data page left to build. So let's click new. And this time I'm going to build a data page that we haven't seen yet. So let's go down to reports and select pivot table. Pivot tables are very powerful. If you used Excel before, and if you know how to build a pivot table inside Excel, in Caspio you build it almost the same exact way. And what a pivot table allows you to do is to see fields on the left hand side, you can see fields across the top, and you can do an aggregate so you can get the sum of all of your data inside the middle. Let me show you how to configure the pivot table. So let's hit next. Select the sales table. Let's call this sales pivot. Restrict access to admin, hit next. You could build a search form. Again, for all of the data pages on the report side, you can build a search interface. I'm not going to build a search interface. I'm just going to filter, hit next. I'm not going to filter based on any field because I want to be able to see all the data from the table. And now you're going to be able to see these data page elements. And just like in Excel, if you ever created a pivot table before, it's done almost the same exact way. So what fields would you like to display as your columns? What fields would you like to display in your rows? And what value do you want to display in the middle? For my column, I would like to display the month. So I'm going to select my date of sale. And I'm going to group that date by date rollup and select month. Very simple. For my rows, I would like to include the rep name because I want to display the rep names on the left. And for my value, I'm going to use my sale amount, and I want to do a sum for all the sales. And with just a few clicks now, if you click preview, take a look at this report. What we're looking at is all the reps on the left. We're looking at the months across the top, and we can see all the sales data in the middle. Now, I just need to format these values so they appear as actual currency. So let me go back to my data page wizard. And for sale amount, we're going to format this, custom, and select currency. Click OK. Preview once again. And now you can see a report. What's really powerful about this report, all that data inside that table is now summarized inside one single view. And as an owner of the company, we have a really good view here in terms of how much revenue are we bringing in per month, who's bringing in the most revenue, and we can also see a grand total of all the sales. If you're satisfied with the preview, the way this looks, go ahead and close the preview tab. Click finish to save your changes. And we have now completed the entire application. I consider this to be a very basic application built in Caspio. You can build a much more robust and sophisticated application because Caspio allows you to add your own SQL statements. You can also use JavaScript, HTML to enhance the functionality and to manipulate some of the fields inside the application itself. I hope that you enjoyed the building process of each of the data pages in this video, and I hope that I will see you in the next video, which is the final video of the series, where I teach you how to deploy each one of these data pages into a website where we have access to the entire functionality, where both the reps and the admins will be able to log in and view the data, edit information, and also be able to submit new sales into the app. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you there.